Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the very brief delay there. We'll start with a couple of housekeeping items. As always, go ahead and, if you don't mind, please keep yourself on mute. Add your affiliation, if you don't mind, next to your name on the Zoom ID. Of course, Arnie is here. If you need record permission, let him know. And if you have a question, use the virtual raise hand button, and we'll take your questions here in just a matter of a few moments. As you certainly know, just a couple hours ago, big announcement from Dreyer and Reinbold Racing, an announcement with really several layers. It begins with a renewal of their partnership with Cusick Motorsports as both look ahead to the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500 presented by Gainbridge. They also announced their dynamic driver lineup for the month of May. It includes Ryan Hunter-Reay, the 2014 winner of the Indy 500 and 2012 IndyCar Series champion. Ryan will drive the number 23 Chevrolet, and Connor Daly returns to participate in his, which is hard to believe, already the 11th Indianapolis 500 for Connor. Connor will drive the number 24 Chevrolet for Dreyer and Reinbold Racing and Cusick Motorsports. And both Ryan and Connor join us this afternoon, as does a team owner of Dreyer and Reinbold Racing, Dennis Reinbold, and of course the founder and CEO of Cusick Motorsports, Mr. Don Cusick. I guess we could go really in any direction with this, but Dennis, let's start with you. What did it take for all this to come together as you prepare to race the race that you cherish the most, really, the Indianapolis 500?
Well, we started talking about what we can do with only one goal. Our only goal is to win the race. And so we started there, and I've had conversations with each of these three guys with me today about just that. And I'll start with Don. Don and I started talking about that really from the time we met, and then talked more throughout the month of May last year, as well as through the summer and ongoing to what is it we can do to team up to really put forth the best effort to give ourselves a shot to win this race. And Ryan, pretty much after the race last year, I was like, I talked to him and said, we would definitely want you back. And then we talked a little more, and as the time went on and the season progressed, and he did some driving with Ed Carpenter Racing, and we stayed in touch and decided pretty much after the season that yes, we wanted to keep going forward. And Connor, I've known for a long, long time, and I talked to him. I don't know when, Connor, you can fill us in on that, but some time ago, and said, hey, if you ever have the opportunity to drive for us, we'd like to have you in there. And our criteria really, Don and myself, was let's go out there and do everything we can to win the race and put the best drivers possible that can do that. And Ryan's proven track record is certainly stellar. And boy, every time you turn around the last several years, Connor's charging to the front. So that's what we wanted to put together and teaming up. Well, we're excited to be back with Chevy again for, I don't know how many years we've been with Chevy, but they're a great partner and support us fully. So we're excited to put this effort together. It's probably our best effort that we've had from the start going into the season. We've been around Dreyer and Reinbold Racing. This is our 25th year of being at it. And so we're a little past due to win this thing. So that's our goal this year.
Yeah, obviously a hugely strong effort, Dennis. Thanks. And Don, let's turn to you. You clearly enjoy being in Indianapolis every month of May now. How much are you looking forward to returning this year?
Super excited as always. It's just kind of become a thing like where else would you want to be on Memorial Weekend or the 2 weeks leading up to it for that matter.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm super excited.
And for the drivers, Ryan, we'll go to you first. Apologize to everyone. You can't turn on the video, but we can certainly hear from Ryan as well. And what did you learn about this organization last year that easily brought you back for 2024?
Yeah, sorry for the technical difficulties there. I'm out in the middle of nowhere in the woods at a camp out here and with the boys, and for some reason video won't work. But no, it was an absolute pleasure. Working with Dennis, the entire Dreyer and Reinbold team is just it was really refreshing. To see the motivation in everyone's faces from day one, and just what they put into this event is special. And I felt that we all worked really hard together. We showed strong every day we were on the racetrack. and really had a strong race day going as well, if not for some little hiccups that were to no fault of the teams at all that got in the way. And that's Indy. It happens that way. But really, it's just it's great to be back with the team. Great to be back with Cusick Motorsports. We thank you, Don, and it's great to be back with Chevy. I've got a great relationship with Chevrolet over the years, and won the championship with them, and look forward to working with them and my friends at Ilmore. So I'm really psyched. This is a huge opportunity to team up with Connor, All-American lineup. We're ready to fly the stars and stripes high.
Yeah, and a good segue, Connor. I know you've watched Dreyer and Reinbold Racing's organization for a long, long time, and even in Nitro Cross as well, if you want to talk about that. But what does it mean to join a group that is so committed to the Indianapolis 500 and certainly with the goal of winning it?
Well, yes. I mean, Dennis did mention it. I've been an IndyCar fan since I was living and breathing on this earth. So, most of my childhood, there were, Dreyer Reinbold cars that I was fans of, several different, I always thought Dennis Reinbold had great looking vehicles as well. You had the Purex wagon back in the day. How could you not cheer for that car? I remember when there, Mike Conway was there, had a great little, there were so many cars that you could root for. So it's obviously in my position right now, it's a bit, I would have loved to have been, doing more IndyCar racing, of course, but the Indy 500 is without a doubt my ultimate goal. To win, I want to be like Ryan and be able to know what the milk tastes like. And obviously to be able to do that for Dennis would be amazing. Dennis has even loaned me a car before in my life, so I owe him already. Like when a Subaru broke down, I think many years ago, I actually got to drive a loaner car from Dennis Reinbold for a while, so I appreciate his generosity there. I made sure that was in the deal for this month of May as well, to have a nice loaner vehicle. But yeah, it's just awesome. It's the best possible scenario. All you want to do when you show up to May is have the best chance to win. And I've obviously got a lot of experience there now. I do believe I know what it takes to run up front. And obviously Ryan does too. So going to the shop, going to see the level of preparation that this group does is it's such a high level. It's kind of hard to believe they're not running full time. You know what I mean? Because you see the preparation, you see the people getting to work with a lot of folks there, especially even on the Nitro Cross side, has been really cool. So it's great to be here with Chevrolet again, who obviously I've worked with many years now at the Speedway. Chevrolet and Don Cusick as well being a part of this. He's obviously really enjoyed being a part of the IndyCar sport. So we love that.
And with that, let's go ahead and open it up for questions. Again, if you have a question, please use the virtual raised hand function. Let's begin. Bruce Martin with Forbes and Speed Sport. Go ahead, Bruce.
Hi, everybody. I got one for Don and a couple for the drivers. Don, I know that Stefan was kind of the cornerstone of your team there for a while. He won't be able to compete, and but yet you're back. You're moving on. I know that you paid some homage to Stefan when you made the announcement earlier today. If you could just talk a little bit about, if there's still a role that he may be playing in the background.
Oh yeah, for sure. So first of all, the opportunity with Dreyer Reinbold was a really great one. We went through, as everybody knows, a lot of stuff last year, and I think that really kind of helped cement who they were, who we were, and we wanted to come back with Dennis and Brent in the group. So that's number one. As far as Stefan goes, unfortunately, he had the injury. I think it set him back a little bit. I'm not sure that he's done trying to be a part of the Indy 500, but look, we'll always support him. He's a good guy and a good friend, and he is the reason that we ended up in the Indy 500. But that said, he's given us his full support and blessing, and depending on what happens this year, hopefully he's around in May and able to say hi to everybody.
And for Ryan and Connor, you two have raced each other a lot in your careers, sometimes pretty fiercely. But what's it like now to be teammates again and maybe to complement each other, on a race team?
I'll go ahead and start if you want. Ryan and I were teammates in 2019 too at Andretti. So, that's when I first got to experience, that, and obviously that operation was massive, and I was just the guy who was coming in to do the 500, but it was, it went really well for us then. I mean, when you're teamed up with someone who has a ton of experience, I think that just helps the whole operation, right? Like we're not, if we have questions, we're able to either go to each other, go to the team, and we can kind of figure out probably where we want to go pretty quickly. So it's just good. Everything about it, as Dennis said, I think this is a very strong lineup. I'm just excited to kind of get going. Like, it just makes you want to get on track as soon as possible.
Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Connor. I mean, I think the strength that we have this year, for myself, especially, is that I've been with the team for a year. We know our strengths, what we need to do better moving forward. I think, bringing Connor in, we're going to have great communication. I think it's a situation where we're capable of just putting, any bit of egos aside and just really working well together and pushing this 2-car team. Like Connor said, we were teammates in 2019 at Andretti, but I don't know how many cars we had in the garage, maybe 8 or 7, 6. I'm not sure. There's a whole lot of noise at that point. There's a whole lot of information buzzing around, and it's really tough to focus on really what matters. And I think in this situation, in this environment with this team, I think it gives us the opportunity to push forward together.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, even though it's an IndyCar Zoom call. Connor, you were groomed to be a Formula One driver, and you've both driven for Michael Andretti. And yesterday, he got some pretty bad news from Formula One that they rejected his bid to go, to bring a team to F1. And I mean, were you surprised? Were you shocked? And if so, why?
Well, I mean, listen to my podcast if you really want to figure it out. Speed Street, it's a great show. I have a lot to say about that. And I dislike it for the Andretti name and it's just sad. It's sad because they've put a lot of work into that, and I've seen a lot of effort go into it. And why wouldn't you want to race against, the best and include, if you're not going to get to race against more folks, I don't know. It's just kind of weird for me. So there's a lot more to that one.
Ryan?
Yeah, I agree. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, obviously, Andretti has the funding, the capabilities of going in there, and I think being competitive. I mean, look at the past. I think Marshall Pruitt said it earlier, or I don't know, like yesterday afternoon or whatever it was, that you enjoyed watching some of these underdog teams come in and try and fight against the powerhouses of McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes. It just kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It makes you feel like, well, this isn't the real deal. This isn't what racing's all about. And I don't know, like Connor said, I can go on about it, but we'll focus on what matters, and that's going out and winning the Indy 500, greatest race in the world.
Well, good luck this year, and I'll see you in May.
All right, thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce. Lewis, stand by. Eric Smith, IndyCar.com. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Kind of a two-part question for you, Dennis. You mentioned this is the 25th year of your team being in existence, but this is also the 10th year being kind of an Indy-only entry. I know in 2020 you ran the road course race out here, but kind of want to go back to that 2013, 2014 timeline. What kind of decision kind of went into the process of being an Indy-only entrant? And now here we are in 2024. Do you feel like your team is kind of better positioned? As you mentioned, your only goal is to win this race now, to win this race, maybe than you were when this first started in 2014?
Yeah, back when we stopped being full-time, we realized that it would take a significant investment to really concentrate and do the testing required to be able to compete for wins on different disciplines of courses, like short courses, street courses, natural terrain road courses, and super speedways. And Indy was at the core of what we did. So we didn't have enough sponsorship to be able to really invest in all disciplines of racing. So we focused on Indy at that point in time. It's really kind of that simple. And since then, we've sort of evolved to where all of our time and testing, our year-round focus for the program is just directed toward the Indy 500. So we did dabble with the Grand Prix a time or two and some other races, but really to not put the effort in on testing and have the budget to develop, the shock program and different things for those disciplines, it's really a hard stretch to think you're going to be competitive. So we focus on Indy only, and that gives us the advantage of full year, one focus and being able to do our testing with a purpose for that one race. So I don't know if that answers your question. That's kind of a roundabout way. I did think it was funny. Connor mentioned he borrowed a car from me a few years ago. So we're kind of back in that mode a little bit. And I remember he brought it back in one piece. So that's a good start. So we hope that happens this May as well, and in a good spot.
Yeah, thank you. That answered my question and segue to what I was going to ask the drivers. I know Ryan and Connor, you guys have both been Indy only entries before, but Dryers seem to bring really good super speedway cars. Do you feel there's an advantage there with the package and the program that you have coming into May this year?
I think the best part about coming into May this year, honestly, is the fact that probably the hybrids have been delayed for us, personally, because there's way, we would have way less time to, get used to those or operate those systems. So if anything, that I would say that helps us. Obviously, there's going to be, some lighter components and some things that will probably change the balance of the car drastically with the way the weight balance shifts. But there's, that stuff we can figure out. If it's a different mechanical balance that we need, different stuff that changes the balance. Ryan and I are smart enough probably to, to work with our engineers in the group to figure that out. So we obviously know the cars are fast. Every year that I've been a part of the 500, at least in the last, several years, I've always found a Dreyer car in the top 5 or top 10 as you're up there racing. So it's something that, I started right next to Ryan last year, so I saw his car plenty of times. So it's just going into the race knowing that is that, that's why we're here. We don't show up to try to not, to lose. So both Ryan and I want to win, and when it comes to doing the Indy 500 only, I think this is our, this is the best shot that we have.
Yeah, I agree. I found last year a tremendous upside to the Indy only focus from the team. Everybody, that nobody was tired. Everybody was motivated, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. The amount of attention to detail that they put into these cars that the team does is the best I have seen, and I've been with a lot of great teams. So it's double sided. There's advantages to it, and then the disadvantage to it is you're not coming in kind of on in full rhythm after doing development testing. Like Connor said, the hybrids have been delayed. However, there is components going on the car that will shift the weight distribution and potentially change the setups quite a bit. So we're going to have to get to work right away on trying to understand exactly what these new regs and what this car spec needs. As he said, I feel like I'm completely confident that we can get on top of it. But we will be playing just a little bit of catch up there, and I think it's something that we can handle. So I'm looking forward to it again. Like I said, the Indy 500 only focus from this team, and the amount of talent and the quality of people on the team really makes a difference for me. So I'm looking forward to getting back to this group again.
And Ryan, one for you. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years ago since you won this race, and you're an Indy 500 champion. You're an IndyCar Series, NTT IndyCar Series champion. Now you're with this team. Do you feel it out of this bunch? You know what it takes to win. Do you feel this group right now around you basically has what it takes to win here on May 26th?
Absolutely. I wouldn't be here if I didn't. And I felt that last year as well. We had a broken front wing adjuster, which was, I don't know what they said. It was like a $25 part or something like that. Just somehow break. No fault of the teams at all. And it was really tough to trim the balance, to change the aero balance in the race. So we just had to trim the rear wing the whole race. And it was tough. We made it around it. And I think if we hadn't had that, we would have been up in the top 5 fighting at the end. But Indy's funny. You have teams like Ganassi and Penske who come with all the greatest resources, everything you can throw at it, and you'll have one team car, up in P2. You'll have another team car consistently P12, things like that. So it is, there's so many details that go into this race, that go into being fast over a single lap, even at the speedway. That it's really, it's tough to say. Every year, I remember being at Andretti every year, I felt like it was almost a bit of a lottery on if we were going to have that fast car in the stable, or if we were going to be one of the ones that was really having to, almost get desperate to get the speed out of the car. So I think they do a great job on the car prep here. I think the consistency of everything that they've done, was beyond my expectations. So I've got no reason to think otherwise, that we can go out there and compete for a win.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Congrats on the announcement, and thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Eric, thank you. Hey, Dennis, when Connor brought the car back, was the gas tank full or not?
I don't know. I didn't check, but probably not, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Oh.
back then I was living day to day, brother. I don't know if I filled that sucker up at all.
I think we know the answer to that.
I was using gift cards probably.
Brought her back on E. There's a fee involved with that. Sorry, Connor. You'll be paying it this month. All right, Lewis, go ahead.
Yes, thanks, Dave. Don, I haven't had the pleasure of talking with you, but Connor and Ryan can vouch for me, and if Ryan won't, Becky will. So what does it take? What does it take to beat the big three and the other 30, altogether, other 31 cars this year?
Hi, Lewis. Good to meet you. I've been an IndyCar fan since 1963. So I guess the first thing I'd say about Indy in particular is it takes a hell of a lot of luck. I think there's an old saying that the track decides the winner. I think there's a lot of truth to that. But obviously it takes a lot of prep. It takes a lot of good people. It takes an excellent pit crew. It takes two really good drivers. I think we've got all that. So that's what makes it exciting for me. I genuinely go into the month of May feeling like we have a real shot at it. I did last year too, but a lot of circumstances and weird things happened, and Indy certainly bit us in the car that Graham ended up driving. But I'm super excited. I think we have all the right pieces.
Thanks a lot. Good luck to all of you. See you in May.
Good to meet you.
Thanks, Lewis.
Thanks, Lewis. Joey Barnes, motorsport.com. Go ahead, Joey.
Hey, thanks, Dave. Dennis, it's not uncommon whenever we get kind of a new regulation change that it affects the smaller teams the most. With the incoming hybrid, which will be in the Indy 500 presumably next year, not this year, obviously. Does that kind of put a greater emphasis on kind of a more all-in approach this time around?
Well, they're spec changes every year. So yes and no. We, as not being a full-time team, they have to get the parts out to full-time teams first and foremost, and we completely understand the need for that. So we try to get our parts and components as quickly as we can in the queue. So that puts us behind and limits some of our ability to do testing. So we're playing catch up whenever there are big changes like that. But we anticipate that. And as soon as we get the parts, we dive in full force and arrange our testing accordingly. Like a lot of the testing that we have scheduled, we've pushed back from what we would normally do just because of parts availability. So we work around it. It's not ideal. You'd like to, at the end of the race last year, if they said, here's your parts that you're going to run for next year's 500, that'd be ideal. But it doesn't work that way because they have a lot of developing to do with those pieces. So we understand, and I think we've been pretty successful at getting those things ironed out in pretty good fashion. The open tests that we do, we've talked to Chevy. We've worked with Chevy quite a bit in the off season on different components and different things, and everyone's in the same boat. So from that standpoint, it's a pretty even playing field. So it actually can sometimes benefit us to have changes in pieces and things like that, because no one has them dialed in as of yet. So you can look at it both ways that way.
Yeah, fair enough. And then I guess the follow-up to that is, obviously, I feel like this is something you get asked every year, but knowing that there's a significant change with the hybrid introduction coming, does that make things attractive to maybe pursue a full-time effort at some point in the near future? Or is this one of those scenarios where we can kind of expect just kind of a month of May Indy only thing, even with the hybrid introduction?
Oh, you never know. We're open-minded to whatever presents itself. If we have a good situation that makes a lot of sense to us, we would look at doing more races in the future. We have all the components and the people to be able to roll that out. It just hasn't been a great fit to get back re-involved on a full-time basis, but we've been kind of close a couple different times, and so we're still looking at it. I'm still open to it for sure.
Awesome. Well, congrats on the announcement, and good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joey. Martin Benavides, Pit Lane, España. Go ahead, Martin.
Thanks, Dave. I have one for each driver. First, Ryan. Does being already 500 champions change the way you face the race or something like that?
I think experience in general over the years, you learn every lap, every time you're at, the speedway, you learn just different nuances, but especially in the race. I think, my earlier days, I always had a sense of extreme urgency, too early on. You have to work with the car through the race. It's going to change as the temp comes up, as the ambient track temp comes up, or whatever the weather's doing. There's so many different variables that you have to be conscious of and help guide you in your decision-making process on how you approach the race. So I think that it helps generally, but I've been close quite a few times to a second one. And, you kind of know in the first quarter of the race, if you've got a shot at it with how the car is handling in relation to, especially to your competition. So I think just the experience there and winning the 500, obviously in 14, learned a lot in that process, but you also learn a lot through the years where it doesn't quite go to plan.
Thanks. And then Connor, although there's a long way to get into the 500, but do you have like a list of drivers that you think they are going to be your main competitors and you like try to study them in this beginning of the season?
It's a good question. I mean, I think when you look at the 500, it is hard to tell. Like as Ryan said, sometimes you'll show up and half the Penske cars will qualify in the middle of the field, and you have no idea why. But then Joseph wins. You know what I mean? Like just like it's you can win from anywhere on the grid. So it's tough to really say. No one would have predicted that Rahal would have been as slow as they were last year, right? And we know that those drivers are very qualified drivers. So I think what's interesting about this year most is that we actually are not. There's no oval races before Indy, so everyone's getting onto an oval or super speedway essentially for the first time at the test in April. So it's going to be hard to tell until the test. The test you can tell, I would say, like 3% of what you need to know. People can kind of go back and do a lot of work in between then and the start of the month of May. But you'll know pretty quickly. Like you'll know after the first couple of days of practice, which cars you really, really need to be concerned about, and which cars are going to be, the fastest. So we'll see. I can only predict that the regular household names, Penske. I would say the Foyt cars are going to be fast again, right? Why not? Michael Cannon Magic over there, and then Arrow McLaren. Why would they not be super fast? You know what I mean? They've got 1 million people working at that operation now, so they should be fast. So I wouldn't expect anything less from any of these top teams that that show up to win just like we do.
Thank you, Connor.
Thanks, Martine. Time for just a couple more. Archie O'Reilly from Dive Bomb Motorsports Magazine. Go ahead, Archie.
Cheers, Dave. A couple for the drivers. Connor, I mean, I think you've said on the podcast that you aren't actively pursuing anything for this year full-time in IndyCar, but looking kind of beyond this year into 2025, are you still looking at full-time IndyCar, or are your views elsewhere, maybe NASCAR?
I mean, honestly, it would have to be the right situation for me, and I'm obviously not going to slot into any of the well-coveted seats. Maybe if I win the Indy 500 this year, that's a different conversation. That's obviously the goal. But who knows? I would never. No doors are ever shut. I'd love to convince Dennis to go full-time racing, you know what I mean? But that obviously takes a very, very large investment. And in the end, that's what it takes. You know, that's what it's going to take for me. That's what it's going to take for, you know, for anyone who wants to go full-time IndyCar racing, essentially. So we'll see. I would never shut any doors. I love the sport of IndyCar, and I do believe I have a lot of unfinished business in that realm.
Thanks, Connor. And for Ryan, how much longer do you plan on doing this for, driving in the Indy 500? Do you have a particular end date in mind, or are you just happy to keep going as it is for now?
No, I don't. You know, I think, you know, I talked to Gilles DeFerrin about it at one point, and we all miss him dearly, that's for sure. He was a great mentor in many ways, but he told me, he said, you'll know if that fire is not there, you'll know it when it's not there. It's very obvious. And this race, the 500, you know, I think about it before I go to bed. When I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about different things that I need to be on top of for this one race, and that fire is burning as bright as it ever has. So I haven't even thought about any of that. Just going out, putting the best foot forward, and making sure that I'm giving 110% to this team and to the effort that all these folks at the team are putting in as well. So I'm excited and you know, as eager as ever. So I haven't even thought about it.
Thanks, Ryan. Cheers, Dave. Congrats,
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks, Archie. We'll try to squeeze in a couple more before we wrap things up. Eduardo Almos Ayala from IndyCar Al Dia. Go ahead, Eduardo.
Thanks, Dave. Good afternoon, everyone. Question for the drivers and a follow-up for Martin's question. After what happened last year in the final laps, 3 red flags, and what Connor was saying, some drivers with no super speedway experience, do you guys are kind of concerned of the possible aggressive driving for this race?
I certainly think there needs
go
to
ahead,
be.
Ryan.
I mean, I think Connor would be in agreement with me on it. I think we talked about it a little bit at one point, but there needs to be a higher you know, level of respect amongst the drivers in super speedway racing. You know, we are out there doing 230, 240, whatever you want to call it, and there was a lot of moves last year that were very road course like, that were very street course like, and you know, especially on restarts, things like that. So I think as a group, it needs to be, you know, it needs to be brought up, and we need to be conscious of it. Yeah. And then you have, you know, the unknowns, some new drivers coming in again. And we've always had that. We've always had, you know, an influx of some new drivers to the speedway, to the 500, and you kind of deal with that as it goes. But last year was definitely, there was some questionable points in the race where I think we do need to address that as a group.
Yeah, I think like after attending the drivers meeting in December, you know, there's definitely going to be some, I think some adjustments to how things are called, right? Like the Joseph Newgarden snaking down the straight below the pit, you know, the pit lane entry. I think that's probably going to go away. And I think the drivers are all pretty unified in kind of what we want to see on how many, you know, moves you can make down the back straight if you're trying to, you know, snake down the back straight, stuff like that. So, but there's also, you know, it is tougher to pass these days than it has been in the past. Like the Aero Kit era, I think the racing, you know, it was a little bit, you know, less difficult to get a run, and the cars are certainly a challenge to drive in traffic. So when you do get an opportunity to make a move, not only do you not want to give that space up if you're the one defending, but you have to get that position if you somehow get a good enough run. So everyone becomes a little bit more desperate, and that's just kind of an era that we're in. But obviously, you know, there needs to be consequences for making, you know, some overly aggressive moves. But sadly at Indy, there's no, you know, you're not just going off in the grass and coming back on the track. Like you're hitting the wall really hard. So, I'm curious to see what happens. It depends on how, you know, I think what'll be a big part of that is how the mechanical balance of the car changes this year with the lighter parts and what Ryan mentioned with changing the weight distribution. because that how the cars race affect how aggressive you need to be in trying to make your way around someone or defending.
Okay. Thank you very much, and congrats on the announcement. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
You got it. Ryan, you want to talk about almost going to the grass and turn 3 at Indy, or no? We'll leave out there.
Yeah. I actually really agree with what Connor said. We are in that era of IndyCar racing now where it is extremely tough to pass, and you do have to make it work when you get the opportunity, because it might be 25 laps later that you get that next opportunity. But yeah, the one in 14, that was definitely, I had it planned out in my head, and the whole thing panned out a little bit later than expected. And yeah, on the data, we actually looked at it after, and there was a spike of wheel spin on that moment when kind of got the car straight to turn into the corner from the bottom. Had never been there before, and I'll tell you what, there's never been a feeling like it for me. Just turning in from the bottom into 3, it was something else.
Yeah, it is the Indy 500 for sure. That you got to keep that in mind as well. Frank will wrap things up here. Frank Korsel from Race Express. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dave. Of course, huge congratulations to you guys. Question for both Connor and Ryan. You guys have both been teammates with Rinus VeeKay. He is already starting his 5th season, but recently said it feels like he's only starting his 2nd season. Do you guys ever get used to driving IndyCar, given you guys have been around for a while? And how was the experience of being teammates with this crazy Dutchman?
I mean, Rinus is obviously very talented. I've never not said that. I mean, he's a really good driver. I think he has a lot more to come. Honestly, I think I think he is better than certainly his results showed last year for a multitude of reasons. But yeah, he's a good driver. He has a long future in this sport. And yeah, I guess that's interesting. I've done over 100 races, which seems ridiculous to me. But like, I'm still showing up to the race shop, like at Dennis's shop, and I'm like, I can't wait to get like this. I feel like it's just every day is the best day ever. So I don't think it's, and I assume Ryan probably feels the same way, or else he wouldn't show up. So it's the greatest feeling ever to be an IndyCar driver. It's the greatest feeling ever to be a part of the greatest event in the world, the Indy 500. And and honestly, when you're doing the season too, yeah, it's the greatest thing ever. So I'm sure time flies though. Like time flies, and that's the only thing you don't get back. So you got to enjoy every day while you can.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Connor. It's I think that Rinus has a massive amount of natural talent. And what you then have to do with that natural talent is build it within an organization. You have to constantly evolve. That's racing in general, right? You have to constantly be evolving. Even if you come off a championship year, you can't think, okay, I'm going to do the same thing I did last year and expect those results, because the competition's continuing to push forward. So you have to constantly kind of be out of your comfort zone. You have the experience there and the confidence of the past, but at the same time, I mean, I remember, sometimes, 10 years into my IndyCar career, I'd walk up to a test day at Sebring and look at this race car sitting there with 6 or 7 guys working on it, this IndyCar sitting there. And I'm like, this is what I do for a living. I mean, it's that same feeling like Connor said. You show up to the shop and you feel like a little kid Christmas morning. So as long as that part doesn't go away, that means it's all there for you. And I think that, I think Rinus has plenty to come. And it was fun, for sure, fun working with him. And hopefully he has a bright future and a successful career ahead.
Amazing, guys. Thank you. Good luck in May.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll go ahead and leave it there for now. Congratulations to everyone at Dreyer and Reinbold Racing, Dennis, Don, and Cusick Motorsports. Congratulations to you guys, Ryan and Connor as well. And thanks everyone for hopping on here this afternoon on quick notice.
Thanks for having us, Dave.
Thank you.
You got it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Ryan. A reminder, this video of the news conference along with transcripts will be available on the IndyCar content site within the next hour or so. So if you need it, look for it there. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your week.
Do the same.